The invitation. The bright lights of the galaxy's most dangerous combat arena flashed on, casting long shadows over the stone walls. The roar of the crowd filled the air as the top predators of the universe prepared for yet another fight to the death. These apex warriors were legends in their own right, feared and respected across galaxies. But today, something was different. Today, an unexpected challenger was stepping into their arena. It all started with a strange message, one that appeared on every screen across the galaxy. The message was short, simple, and unsettling. One challenger, one fight. Your survival is uncertain. The message flickered and disappeared as quickly as it had appeared, leaving a sense of unease hanging in the air. The audience, gathered from all corners of the universe, whispered among themselves, exchanging nervous glances. It was rare for a new contender to step into the arena, especially one that was unknown. This wasn't just any fight. It was the kind that decided who would reign supreme in the galaxy's most brutal competition. The arena was unlike any other. Massive, with walls made of reinforced steel, it was designed for one purpose: combat. The floor was a mixture of metal and stone, where warriors could show off their strength, skill, and intelligence. This was no ordinary fight. It was survival of the fittest. And for the predators who had fought here before, they had always come out on top. Today, however, they faced an unknown opponent. As the countdown clock ticked down, the camera panned over the warriors preparing for battle. There was Zorak, the towering beast from the Korrid galaxy, his eyes glowing red with the fury of 1,000 battles. He was known for his brutal strength, able to crush enemies with one punch. Beside him stood Rixar, a silent predator from the cybernetic world of Xylos, his body enhanced with artificial limbs that made him faster and stronger than most. His reputation for stealth and precision made him a deadly opponent in any fight. Then, there was Kisara, the deadly assassin from the Vaorn planet. Known for her speed and agility, she could move so quickly that most of her enemies didn't even see her coming. Her blade was a blur in the air, and it was said that no one had ever survived a direct strike from her weapon. The other predators shifted in their positions, eyeing the new challenger, wondering who it could be. The ground shook as the arena doors opened, and all eyes turned toward the entrance. The audience fell silent, their breath held in anticipation. Who was this mysterious challenger? What kind of warrior would dare to face the galaxy's finest? A figure appeared in the doorway, stepping out into the arena. The crowd gasped in disbelief. The woman who walked into the combat arena alone was unlike any fighter they had ever seen. She was unarmed, her hands at her sides, moving with a quiet confidence that seemed to send a chill through the air. Her long dark hair swayed as she walked, her eyes focused and calm. There was no fear in her posture, no hesitation. She walked into the heart of the arena like she belonged there. The predators exchanged glances, some narrowing their eyes, others simply watching her with suspicion. They were used to facing the strongest and most dangerous fighters from across the galaxy, but this woman, she didn't fit the profile of any seasoned warrior they had faced before. Her presence felt different. Zorak was the first to speak. "Who is she?" His voice rumbled through the arena, deep and threatening. "Does it matter?" Rixar replied, his voice cold and indifferent. "She's here to fight, and that's enough." Kisara, who had been watching quietly, narrowed her eyes. "I've never seen anyone like her. She doesn't look like she's here for a battle. She's here for something else." As the crowd waited in suspense, the announcer's voice boomed through the arena. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new challenger today. She has no known background, no record. We don't know her name, but she's here to prove herself. Will she survive the fight, or will she be another casualty in the galaxy's deadliest arena?" The tension in the air grew thick. No one knew what to expect. The woman stood silently in the center of the arena, unflinching as the predators watched her every move. What was her purpose here? What kind of warrior would walk into this arena alone, without any weapons, without any fear? The countdown began, and the fight was about to start. The predators, despite their fearsome reputations, couldn't help but feel a sense of uncertainty. Something about this woman felt different. And in that moment, they realized that they weren't just fighting a challenger. They were fighting for their survival. Because no one, not even the fiercest apex predators, knew what she was capable of. And just like that, the greatest battle the arena had ever seen was about to begin. Her arrival. The roar of the crowd echoed through the arena, but there was an eerie silence among the apex predators. The woman stood at the center of the vast metal arena, her gaze unshaken, as though the weight of the entire galaxy's attention meant nothing to her. Zorek, towering and imposing, cracked his knuckles, watching her closely. He had fought in countless arenas, crushed the toughest of opponents, but this was different. There was a stillness to her presence that unsettled him. Kisara, known for her quick reflexes and silent strikes, was the next to speak, her voice barely above. A whisper. She walks in like she already owns the place. And in many ways, it seemed as if she did. With each step she took across the arena, the ground seemed to bend to her will, the very air around her charged with anticipation. The predators shifted, uneasily, exchanging nervous glances. A chill passed over the crowd. No one had ever dared to enter this arena without a weapon. No one had ever come here alone. But this woman, dressed in a simple black suit that seemed to absorb the very light around her, had done just that. She was the complete opposite of every warrior who had ever fought here. There were no scars on her face, no gleaming armor, no intimidating weapon in hand. She wasn't even wearing the traditional combat suit. Her attire was simple, almost civilian. Yet, she exuded a quiet confidence that none of the predators could ignore. As she moved to the center of the arena, the loudspeakers crackled with the announcer's voice, but it felt like the words were swallowed by the air, barely making it to the ears of the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our new challenger. She has no record, no reputation, but she has stepped forward to face the fiercest of warriors. Today we witness a battle like no other. The crowd watched, waiting for the chaos to begin, but still, the woman remained motionless. Her eyes were scanning the entire arena, studying the predators, reading them like an open book. It was a terrifying sight. The predators had all fought countless battles, each more brutal than the last. But no one had ever seen this. Someone who didn't flinch, didn't rush to engage. She simply observed. Rixar's mechanical arm twitched, his fingers clenching into a fist. The cybernetic enhancements he had spent years perfecting gave him a massive advantage, yet the woman wasn't even looking at him directly. Instead, she was studying everyone, almost as if she were dissecting their every move. There was no fear, no challenge in her eyes. She was calm, almost detached. "Does she not know who we are?" Kisara asked, her voice full of disbelief. She had faced numerous foes, some skilled, others ruthless, but the way this woman stood, unbothered by the reputation of the apex predators, made her uneasy. Zorek, finally tiring of the silence, grunted and stepped forward, his huge fists clenched. "Enough waiting. We'll see how long her calm lasts when we tear her apart." His voice was thick with anger, and his muscles rippled as he prepared for the battle ahead. But still, the woman didn't move. She just stood there as though the imminent battle meant nothing to her. Zorek was used to people shrinking before him, but she wasn't shrinking. Instead, it was as if the arena itself was shrinking around her. Then, without warning, the woman's eyes flicked towards the sky as if she was waiting for something, or someone. The moment was brief but sharp, as if she knew something no one else did. It was unsettling, and for a second even Zorek faltered. And that was when the first attack came. A loud blast echoed as a bright energy beam shot out from one of the arena's walls, targeting the woman. The predators were used to the arena's traps, designed to test every fighter's reflexes. It was meant to catch them off guard. But the woman? She moved faster than anyone could process. In a blink, she sidestepped the beam, barely flinching, as though she had anticipated it. A ripple of astonishment spread through the predators. She hadn't just dodged the beam. She had predicted it. This was no ordinary fighter. She was playing a different game entirely. Zorak, Kisara, Rixar. None of them had seen anything like this. The woman wasn't just here to fight. She was here to dismantle everything they knew about combat. And at that moment, the entire arena went silent as if waiting for her next move. She smiled, a subtle, knowing smile. And that was when the predators realized this wasn't just a challenge. This was a test. A test they were failing. The battle begins. The buzz in the arena was palpable, like the air was charged with a storm waiting to break. The challengers, the apex predators, were not accustomed to hesitation, but there it was, a momentary pause, a shift in their confidence. For the first time, they were unsure. The woman, standing alone at the center, wasn't even trying to fight yet. She was simply waiting, watching. And then, without warning, Zorak, the massive brute of the Chorrid galaxy, broke the silence. With a snarl, he lunged forward, his enormous fists raised to crush her into the ground. He had fought beasts twice his size before, so this was nothing. Nothing, until it happened. The, woman's body shifted like liquid, effortless, fluid, as if she was anticipating his every move. With a single step to the side, she dodged Zorak's punch by mere inches. The force of his swing was so powerful that it sent a shockwave through the arena, cracking the floor beneath him. But she didn't even flinch. Zorak's eyes widened in surprise. He was used to opponents crumbling before his raw strength, but not her. She wasn't just dodging, she was moving faster than his mind could follow. And that was when it happened. Without warning, the woman, still with that calm expression, struck. It was not a brutal attack, not a wild flurry of punches, like the others had expected. Instead, it was precise. A simple movement. Her fingers grazed Zorak's chest, and in that moment, the arena seemed to freeze. Zorak staggered back, his chest heaving, his face contorted in confusion. He reached for the spot she had touched. It burned. He couldn't breathe properly. Something was wrong. But what? It was as if the energy he had been storing in his muscles had been drained from him in an instant. The crowd held its breath. Kisara, watching from a distance, felt a chill run down her spine. She had seen combatants break each other with sheer force, witness the brutal power of Zorak's punches, but nothing like this. She hadn't even seen the woman's attack clearly. How had she done that? Impossible, Kisara muttered under her breath. But before anyone could process what had just happened, the next predator moved. Rixar, the cybernetic assassin. His artificial limbs whirred to life with a speed and precision unmatched by any natural warrior. With a fluid motion, Rixar dashed forward, his blade glinting as he aimed straight for the woman's throat. His attack was a blur, faster than most eyes could see. A strike designed to be both deadly and swift. But again, the woman was ahead of him. Her body moved in an arc that was almost too quick to catch, and she leaned backward, just enough to avoid the blade. Rixar's strike missed by inches, grazing the air where her throat had been a moment ago. Before Rixar could adjust, she twisted, and in one smooth motion she grabbed his arm and used his momentum to send him tumbling to the ground with a simple, almost graceful movement. It was not a move of strength, but of timing, of understanding. Rixar landed with a loud crash, his body skidding across the arena floor. He stood up quickly, his metallic arm still buzzing from the failed strike, his expression now full of disbelief. There was no pain, no anger, just confusion. This woman wasn't supposed to be capable of this. She wasn't supposed to outmaneuver him like that. Kisara, now visibly shaken, was the next to react. Her blades hummed with power as she made her move. Unlike Zorak and Rixar, Kisara was all about speed, quick, decisive, and deadly. She moved in a blur of motion, aiming to catch the woman off guard with a series of rapid strikes. Her blades flashed in the air as she attacked with unparalleled swiftness. But the woman had already anticipated this. With the same fluid grace, she ducked and weaved, her body moving as though it were an extension of the arena itself. Kisara's blade sliced through the air where the woman had just been, but she wasn't there. The woman was already behind her, her hand outstretched as she lightly tapped Kisara's back. It was a soft touch, but it carried the same strange, draining power. Kisara's legs gave out beneath her. The assassin, known for her speed, now felt her body slowing, her strength fading, as if the energy had been siphoned from her in an instant. She fell to her knees, gasping, trying to regain control of her body. The woman stood calmly, her expression unchanged. "This isn't your fight," she said, her voice soft but carrying an undeniable weight. Her words echoed through the arena, leaving Kisara with an unsettling realization. The fight was already over, before it had even truly begun. The remaining predators, now visibly shaken, began to circle her. But there was no rush, no immediate onslaught. They too were learning something about their opponent that they had never anticipated. She was not just fast, not just skilled. She was otherworldly, and with that realization, the true test had begun. Unveiling the truth. The arena had fallen eerily silent, the audience captivated by the unfolding events. The woman, standing alone amidst the chaos, moved with such grace that it almost seemed like she wasn't part of the battle at all. Her calm demeanor had not wavered even as the fiercest warriors in the galaxy struggled to land a single blow on her. She had already proven herself, but no one knew how or why she was so formidable. It was Zorik who broke the silence, his voice rough, laced with confusion. "Who are you?" His eyes were narrowed, not in anger but in genuine curiosity. "What are you?" The woman didn't respond immediately. She simply watched him, her gaze steady and unflinching. The silence stretched between them, almost unbearable, until she finally spoke. "My name is not important," she said, her voice calm, yet carrying a weight that made the air around them thick. "But you are right to be confused. You know nothing about me, and perhaps you never will." At that moment, a strange realization seemed to ripple through the arena. This wasn't just a fight, it was something else. This woman wasn't here for glory, nor was she simply challenging the apex predators for sport. She had a deeper purpose, a goal that transcended the simple desire to win. A low hum filled the air, like a distant, almost forgotten memory awakening. The crowd's attention was not just on the battle anymore, but on something else. A feeling, a sense of foreboding. The energy in the arena seemed to shift. The predators, no longer sure of their strategy, started to circle her warily. They could feel it now. She wasn't just skilled. She wasn't just fast. She had come here for a reason. Zorik, still trying to comprehend what was happening, grunted. "What are you here for, then? Why face us?" The woman's lips curled into a small smile, but there was no warmth behind it. "I'm here to remind you of what you've forgotten, of what you've lost." Confusion turned to unease. The predators had never heard anyone speak like this, not in the arena. But something about her words struck a chord, though none of them could pinpoint why. It wasn't just her strength, her speed, or her uncanny ability to predict their every move. It was something else. Something buried deep, something that made them feel vulnerable. It was Rixar, the cybernetic assassin, who spoke next. "Lost what? We're the apex predators. We are everything." The woman's gaze shifted to him, and for a moment it felt as though she were looking right through him. "You were once more," she said, her voice steady but heavy with an unspoken history. "And you are now mere shadows of what you used to be." The words hung in the air, and suddenly, the weight of her statement began to sink in. The predators, so proud of their power, their position at the top of the galaxy's food chain, had never truly questioned their place. They had been bred for combat, perfected over countless generations, but now, faced with this woman, they were starting to wonder, had they lost something along the way? Rixar's mechanical limbs whirred in frustration, his eyes flashing with suspicion. "What do you know about us?" he demanded. She met his gaze, unwavering. "I know everything. I know about the battles you fought, the victories you've claimed, and the dark corners you've forgotten. You think you are the apex, but you are only where they let you be. The arena was quiet now, the hum of the energy fields fading into the background. The audience, sensing the change in the atmosphere, leaned in, hanging on her every word. The woman was no longer just a challenger. She was something more. A force that was unearthing something deep within each of the predators, something they had buried long ago. Zorak, struggling to regain his composure, growled, "Enough of your riddles. If you have come to fight, then fight." But she wasn't done yet. "You want a fight? Then I will give you one, but not in the way you think." She stepped forward, not with aggression but with purpose. Her movements were calculated, measured, like someone performing a ritual rather than preparing for battle. It was as though she was bringing the fight to them, not just with her physical prowess but with something that went deeper than combat. She was attacking their very foundation, their belief in their own invincibility. Zorak's fists clenched, ready to crush her once and for all, but as he lunged forward, something strange happened. The ground beneath his feet cracked, not from the force of his attack, but from the impact of something else, something the woman had set in motion. A shimmering pulse of energy erupted from the arena's center, surrounding her like an invisible force field. The predators were momentarily stunned, unable to move as they had before. The air around them crackled, charged with a power they couldn't comprehend. And then, in a single, fluid motion, the woman turned her back to them and whispered, "This is just the beginning." And just like that, the truth was out. The woman was no ordinary fighter. She wasn't a challenger. She was a reminder. A force sent to show them the truth of their own decay, the cracks in the armor they had built over millennia. In that moment, they realized they weren't just fighting her. They were fighting the very truth of their existence. And that was far more dangerous than anything they had ever encountered. The first predator falls. The arena trembled with anticipation. The crowd, once roaring with excitement, now held its collective breath. The first predator had fallen, but it was not by force, not by the strength of a crushing blow. It was by something more subtle, something that neither Zorak nor Kisara nor any of the apex predators had seen coming. The woman had not crushed him with a punch or a blade. She had defeated him with something far more devastating. Knowledge. Knowledge of their own weaknesses, their own fragile belief in invincibility. Zorak, still reeling from the strange energy that had surged through the arena moments before, stood frozen. He could barely process the defeat that had just occurred. His massive form loomed over the arena, but it was clear now that even his brute strength was no match for what the woman wielded. The air around him buzzed with the odd pulse of energy, the same energy that seemed to have drained him moments ago. The woman stood in the center, her face calm, unreadable. She had not even broken a sweat. To her, the fight had never been about combat in the traditional sense. It had been about understanding, about breaking down the barriers the predators had built around themselves. She had unlocked something in them that no one else had ever even considered. Kisara, still on her knees, gasped for breath. Her legs trembled as she tried to regain her footing, but the energy from the woman's touch still pulsed through her body. She could feel it, a dull ache like the very essence of her strength being drained away. She had been so fast, so precise, but the woman had beaten her without ever drawing a weapon, without ever breaking a sweat. She had been outclassed without ever truly being touched. "What is this?" Kisara's voice cracked as she looked up at the woman, her breath shallow. "You don't even need a weapon. How are you doing this?" The woman didn't respond immediately. She was watching Zorak, the massive predator, as he seemed to shrink under the weight of his own confusion. His arrogance was gone, replaced by a quiet fear that none of them had expected. He looked at the woman, his gaze filled with disbelief. "I told you," the woman said, her voice soft yet cutting through the air like a blade. "This isn't your fight, not anymore." Zorak opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. His body felt heavy, as if the ground beneath him was pulling him down. He staggered forward, desperate to get closer to her, to find some form of victory in this chaos. But his movements were slow, uncoordinated. It was as if the very energy of the arena had turned against him, sapping his strength with each step. And then, as the crowd watched in stunned silence, something remarkable happened. Zorek, the greatest of all predators, fell to his knees. The once mighty beast, known for crushing his enemies with sheer force, now lay defeated in the dust, his body trembling with the realization of his failure. His eyes met the woman's for a brief moment, but there was no hatred in them. Only the cold, hard truth that she had stripped from him. The truth that no one was invincible, not even him. The woman took a single step forward, her eyes never leaving Zorek's. "You thought you were the apex," she said quietly, "but you've become a reflection of your own pride, and that is where your strength has faded." Zorek's chest heaved with labored breaths as he tried to lift his hands, but they were useless. The overwhelming force of the woman's presence had done what no physical attack ever could. It had broken him. The crowd was silent. The predators stood still, unsure of what to do next. They had come to watch bloodshed, to see who would emerge victorious. But instead, they had witnessed something far more profound. They had watched the fall of the first predator, not through violence, but through the revelation of their own vulnerability. The woman turned away from Zorek, not with triumph, but with a sense of inevitability. She wasn't here to fight for sport or for glory. She was here to expose something much deeper, and as Zorek collapsed fully onto the arena floor, the crowd erupted into whispers. Some were cheering, others in shock, but all were united by one thought. The battle had just begun. The woman had proven herself, not by defeating an opponent in a traditional sense, but by defeating their very concept of strength. The predators, the so-called apex beings of the universe, were no longer sure of themselves. They were no longer sure of anything. One down. How many more would fall before the truth was exposed? The fight escalates. The fall of Zorek had sent shockwaves through the arena, but what followed next was even more unsettling. The energy in the air had shifted, and it wasn't just because one of the galaxy's most feared predators had been brought to his knees without a single wound. It was because the other apex predators now realized they could fall too. A strange tension hung in the air. Kisara, still recovering from the draining touch of the woman, rose to her feet. The anger in her eyes was palpable, but there was a hesitation now, a doubt she hadn't felt before. Her speed, her agility, her years of training, all of it had meant nothing against this woman. "This ends now," Kisara hissed under her breath. She had always been the quickest, the deadliest when it came to strikes. She had made a reputation by never being caught off guard. But this woman, with her calm demeanor and strange power, had destroyed that illusion in an instant. With a swift motion, she lunged, her blades flashing in the light. This time, she wasn't going to give the woman any time to predict her next move. But as she closed the gap, something unexpected happened. The woman didn't even move. She didn't need to. Instead, she let the arena do the work for her. Thud. Floor beneath Kisara's feet seemed to shift, slightly, just enough to throw off her balance. Her strike, meant to be a blur of deadly precision, slowed just enough to miss by a fraction of a second. It wasn't the woman's movements that caused the error. It was the environment itself that seemed to work against her. Kisara stumbled, barely catching herself before falling, and in that moment the woman struck without warning. The blow was subtle, a light tap to Kisara's back, but the effects were immediate. Her body froze, her legs giving out beneath her. The air around her seemed to thicken, pulling the life force from her limbs. She could no longer feel the surge of adrenaline she had relied on for so long. The sharpness of her mind dulled, replaced by an overwhelming sense of weariness that she couldn't shake. "Not your fight, Kisara," the woman said, her voice as cold and composed as ever. "You are only a shadow of what you once were." Kisara, now unable to rise, looked up in shock. The woman wasn't even touching her. She hadn't needed to. Her body had been drained, her willpower sapped with a simple, effortless movement. She could feel the truth creeping in, just as it had with Zorek. They were all weak in ways they didn't understand. The remaining predators, watching this unfold, felt a ripple of panic crawl through their minds. Rixar's mechanical limbs trembled. As he prepared to act, his senses on high alert. He was faster than any organic fighter, more precise than any weapon. But this woman, she didn't fight like anyone they had ever known. Rixar's attack came swiftly, his enhanced limbs designed for quick surgical strikes. But as he moved, the arena shifted again just enough to throw off his balance. The woman didn't dodge, didn't even flinch. She simply stepped to the side, and in that moment Rixar's strike went wide. His robotic arm snapped forward with incredible speed, but it was like striking air. The woman had anticipated it. She wasn't moving fast. She was simply moving with perfect timing, reading the smallest shifts in his movements, his body language. It was as if she were inside his mind, knowing exactly where he would strike, before he even did. Rixar's rage flared, his red eyes glowing with fury. "You think you can outmatch me? I am more than just a machine. I am perfection." The woman's smile was faint but deliberate. "Perfection is only a mirror, Rixar. It shows you who you think you are, but it doesn't make you invincible." She stepped forward, and in the blink of an eye, she had placed a hand on his chest, lightly, almost tenderly. Rixar, for all his cybernetic enhancements, could feel the pressure build, a force that didn't belong in the world of machines. His systems began to malfunction, a strange, disabling pulse rippling through him. His limbs froze. His vision blurred. In that moment, Rixar realized that he was not the predator he thought he was. He was just another tool, another body vulnerable to forces he couldn't understand. The woman with her unearthly power was stripping them of everything they had taken for granted: strength, speed, invulnerability. With one final look at the other predators, the woman whispered, "You are all the same. You are afraid to face what you've become." Rixar fell to his knees, his systems failing him, as the woman calmly walked past him. He was no longer the terrifying assassin. He was just a defeated machine, rendered powerless by the very force he had thought was beneath him. The remaining predators stood in stunned silence. They could feel it now, the overwhelming weight of their own vulnerability. The woman wasn't just outmatching them. She was unraveling them piece by piece, showing them the cracks in their own arrogance. The fight had escalated, but it wasn't just a battle of strength anymore. It was a battle of awareness, a battle for the truth of what they truly were. And as the woman moved forward, the final predator standing could feel the truth creeping in. She wasn't just an opponent. They had underestimated her in ways they couldn't yet fathom. The final showdown. The arena was now filled with a heavy, suffocating silence. The crowd, once brimming with excitement and anticipation, now seemed like an afterthought, their cheers swallowed by the weight of what had transpired. The apex predators had been brought to their knees, their pride shattered, their strength drained, not by physical blows but by the woman who had dismantled everything they believed in. She stood in the center, untouched, her gaze calm yet resolute. The last predator, the final contender, had yet to step forward. He had watched as his companions, once feared warriors, had faltered in the face of an enemy unlike any other. His name was Thrax, and he was known across the galaxy as the most lethal of them all, the ultimate predator, the one who never lost. But as he surveyed the battlefield, something inside him began to shift. The woman had done what none had thought possible. She had torn through the might of the Korrid beast, the speed of the Vaorn assassin, and the precision of the cybernetic killer. She had stripped them of their power, their confidence, and now she stood before him waiting. Thrax clenched his fists, his knuckles crackling with the energy of 1,000 battles. He wasn't like the others. He had faced down entire armies, survived the deadliest encounters, and emerged victorious, every single time. But something about her, something about the way she moved, the way she spoke, made him pause. For the first time, Thrax wasn't sure of his victory. For the first time, he was afraid. But he would not back down. He was the apex predator, and this would not be his defeat. With a roar that shook the arena, Thrax charged at her, his massive form moving with a speed and fury that would have torn through anyone else. His fists swung with enough force to crush planets, his eyes burning with the fire of a warrior who knew no equal. But she didn't flinch. The woman simply stood there, her posture unchanged, watching him as he approached. As his fist came down, she moved, swift, calculated, but not with the urgency of someone fighting for survival. No, she moved as though she were a step ahead, as though she had already seen the outcome. Thrax's fist swung through the air, and, for a split second, he thought he had her. But she wasn't there. She was already behind him, her fingers grazing his back in a delicate touch that sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. It wasn't a strike. It wasn't an attack. But in that instant, something inside Thrax shifted. His body, the body that had torn through galaxies, froze. It was as though his power, his very essence, had been drained. His limbs, once powerful, now felt heavy. His vision blurred, and for a moment he couldn't remember why he was fighting. He spun around, his muscles screaming in protest, but it was too late. The woman was in front of him now, her eyes not filled with malice, but with something far more unsettling, understanding. "You have been fighting the wrong battle," she said softly, almost as if speaking to herself. "You were never meant to be the apex." Thrax staggered back, his breath ragged, his mind racing. "What do you mean?" His voice was no longer filled with anger, but confusion. Real, deep confusion. "I am the apex. I have defeated every opponent. I have crushed every challenger. No one is stronger than me." The woman's gaze never wavered. "You have crushed bodies but not hearts. You have defeated opponents, but never yourself." She took a single step forward, and in that moment, Thrax felt the weight of 1,000 years of pride come crashing down. His entire existence had been built on the belief that he was unbeatable, untouchable. But in front of this woman, he felt small, he felt human. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. The arena seemed to shrink around him as the woman's words echoed in his mind. "The truth is, Thrax, you are not the apex. You are simply a reflection of your own fear. Fear of weakness, fear of being replaced." Thrax's knees buckled, his massive frame collapsing to the floor. The fight had been over long before he had even raised his fists. It wasn't about strength. It was about facing the truth that he, too, was just as vulnerable as the others. Though, woman looked down at him, her expression unchanged. She wasn't there to win. She wasn't there to defeat him. She was there to reveal the truth. "You thought you were alone at the top," she said, her voice almost gentle. "But no one is truly invincible. Not even you. The final predator, the one who had been meant to be the last line of defense, was now nothing more than a shadow of his former self. His defeat wasn't from the force of her blows, it was from the weight of his own self-delusion. And as the woman turned to face the audience, there was no cheering, no applause, just a profound silence. The truth had been revealed, and the galaxy's most feared predators had been shown for what they truly were: frail. The fight was over. The woman had walked in alone, and none of the apex predators walked out. The crowd, still in shock, could only stare in stunned silence. The arena, once a symbol of strength, now seemed empty. Because the true battle had not been fought in the arena, it had been fought within each predator, and they had all lost.